Kind of like how you'll find a lot of terrible parents in anime, you'll also find some terrible anime teachers. Teachers are very important because not only are they educating the future generations of tomorrow, but they're also responsible for the safety and well-being of the child for approximately 8 hours. If you take a closer look at certain anime, you'll realize that a lot of these fictional teachers would get fired in real life. The worst teachers in anime show up in all kinds of different series, from Erased to Card Captor Sakura. Whether these awful teachers are murdering their students, hooking up with their charges, or just being super cavalier about getting their jobs done, a lot of these anime teachers should totally get fired. The abundance of lousy educators really makes you wonder who is hiring these people in the first place, and why haven't they lost their jobs. 1. Tetsuo Takahashi from Interviews with Monster Girls. In Interviews with Monster Girls, biology teacher Tetsuo Takahashi is scolded by the principal for focusing too hard on the needs of his demi-human students. Demi-humans are supernatural beings like vampires and succubi who have integrated into regular human society. They are a marginalized group, and their special needs are used as a metaphor for disabilities. While the principal ultimately ends up taking back what he said, he was actually kind of right. Yes, the demi-human students need extra help, and yes, it should be given to them. But Takahashi's brand of help borders on creepy. He relentlessly grills these kids about their demi-human natures to the point where it's unethical. Takahashi prioritizes his obsession with researching demi-humans over actually assisting them, which is how he ends up asking things like, "When you suck blood, does it turn you on?" He is completely inappropriate and crosses several boundaries that a teacher shouldn't be allowed to cross with students. Besides that, Takahashi is not a paraprofessional or a special education teacher who has specifically been assigned to work with these girls. He's a biology teacher. He has several classes full of students who all need his help, but he focuses most of his efforts on 3 girls because he's eerily fascinated by them. 2. Aikichi Onizuka from Great Teacher Onizuka. Great Teacher Onizuka's titular main character is regarded by many as an unconventional, but loving and well-meaning teacher who will do anything to help his students. That may be true, but his motivation for becoming a teacher in the first place is freaking gross. He wanted to meet sexy high school girls. Yes, he's only 22, and yes, many of the female students he's after are legal, but that actually doesn't matter when it comes to student-teacher interactions. Sure, you can't exactly call him a pedophile, but you can definitely call him out for taking advantage of a power dynamic. He's looking at his female students inappropriately, and is definitely guilty of entertaining erotic thoughts that don't belong in the classroom. 3. Katsuya Honda from Fruits Basket. Katsuya Honda is the father of Fruits Basket's protagonist, Toru Honda. While fans don't actually see Katsuya's teaching in action, it is known that when he first met Toru's mother, Kyoko, he was a substitute teacher at her middle school. Her middle school meaning the middle school she attended as a student. So, the dude hooked up with his very, very young student, and later had a child with her. Because he never wanted to be a teacher in the first place, and only pursued the job at his parents' insistence, he's able to trash his fledgling career as soon as he commits this major breach of ethics. Katsuya's family disapproves of his relationship with Kyoko, but it's mostly because she's a rebellious gang girl who doesn't come from a proper family. What's disturbing is that Katsuya's parents don't care about the fact that he is taking advantage of a child. 4. Nozomu Aidashiki from Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei. The entire premise of Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei is that the smallest inconvenience can send the teacher, Nozomu Aidashiki, into fits of suicidal despair. While teachers can absolutely be effective while managing mental health issues, Aidashiki is not. Instead of seeking out therapy or finding other ways to reduce his stress so he can do his job, he repeatedly tries to commit suicide in front of his students and actually tries to persuade them that they should kill themselves too. While most of this is played for laughs, it's still pretty disturbing, and definitely the kind of thing that would get a teacher fired. 5. Yoshiyuki Tarata from Card Captor Sakura. Card Captor Sakura is a beloved anime, though it unfortunately features one of the world's creepiest teachers. Yoshiyuki Tarata, an elementary school teacher in his mid-30s, proposes to one of his students, Rika Sasaki, when she is in 4th grade. While the relationship is depicted through blushes and sighs, and never gets particularly explicit, a grown man who is capable of developing romantic feelings for a prepubescent girl has no business educating children. 6. Velion Crowley from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Velion Crowley, also known as Kronos de Medici in the original Japanese version of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, is a seriously awful teacher. He spends the whole first season trying to kill one of his students, the protagonist Jaden Yuki, via a card game. You'd think that attempted murder would be grounds for automatic dismissal, but the dude works at a school that doesn't care about missing students, so Crowley's job is probably safe. 7. Akane Managua from Scum's Wish. Akane Managua from Scum's Wish is a music teacher who has no concept of professional boundaries. She deliberately flirts with a fellow teacher because she knows that one of her students, Hanabi, has been in love with him since childhood. Intentionally mocking your students is totally unprofessional, but it gets worse. Akane has sex with one of her underage students, Muji, because she knows he's had a crush on her for years. Talk about an abuse of power and inappropriate behavior. 8. Gocoho Asano from Assassination Classroom. If you haven't seen Assassination Classroom, you might think that the bad teacher was the giant yellow tentacle monster who claims that he's going to destroy the earth unless a group of middle schoolers can stop him. You would be wrong. Koro-sensei, the aforementioned tentacle monster, is actually an exceptionally good teacher. However, the same cannot be said about Gocoho Asano, former teacher and current principal of Kunijigakaka Middle School. Principal Asano's system of running his school is terrible. He created a ranking system where the lowest scoring students, called Class 3E, are treated significantly worse than the rest of the school. Not only do they have to live in a subpar building far away from the main campus, but the better scoring students are encouraged to bully them. Principal Asano really doesn't want these kids to bring their grades up either. He goes as far as personally teaching most of the school college-level coursework and excluding Class 3E from the lessons, but still testing them on the material. He maintains this system because he believes that having someone to look down on and discriminate against will encourage the rest of his students to do well. So, not only is he training most of his students to be bigoted jerkbags, he's actively stifling Class 3E's ability to learn the opposite of his job's purpose as an educator. 9. Ritsu Minami from Loveless. Loveless Ritsu Minami adopted one of his students, Agatsuma Subi. This is already a little sketchy. While many teachers who do this do so with the best of intentions, the teacher role and the parent role are inherently different. It can be hard to figure out where the boundaries lie. However, Minami does not give a damn about boundaries. He verbally, physically, and sexually abuses Subi, all while continuing to teach him, and then abandons him at age 17. Not only should this guy be fired, he should be in prison. 10. Mizuki from Naruto. Mizuki is the first antagonist to appear in Naruto. He's also a terrible teacher. Not only does he trick Naruto, one of his students, into stealing a scroll for him, but he also tries to kill him afterward. An attempt on your student's life is definitely enough to get you fired, but Mizuki should have been fired long before the events of the opening arc. This deplorable man became a teacher to seriously torment his childhood friend, Irika. He wants to surreptitiously make Irika as miserable as possible. Why? Because when they were kids, Irika got extra attention after his parents were killed, and Mizuki was so jealous that he dedicated his life to ruining Irika's. If your main goal as a teacher is to take revenge on another teacher, you really need to be fired. 11. Mr. Iwamoto from Yu Yu Hakusho. Yu Yu Hakusho actually has two teacher characters who are terrible, but because one of them actually does get fired, let's focus on the one who should have been kicked out as well, Mr. Iwamoto. Mr. Iwamoto hates the protagonist, Yusuke Urameshi, so much that he's actively trying to get him expelled. Secretly hoping to get a problem student out of your hair is one thing, but actively taking steps to make it happen is quite another. This dude tries to frame Yusuke for stealing a pen, convinces another teacher to change Kawabara's answers on a test so that he can punish him for poor grades, and is genuinely happy when Yusuke dies. Some fans have speculated that he might actually be a demon, which could explain his truly irrational hatred of a poorly behaved teenager and why he isn't fired. 12. Koichi Shito from High School of the Dead. Koichi Shito is a teacher in High School of the Dead. As you may have guessed by the name, this school is overrun by zombies. Given the chaos that this kind of problem invariably causes, he's probably not getting fired anytime soon, but in the real world, he would be. Why? Because he's a self-absorbed piece of shit who only cares about himself. No reasonable person expects teachers to sacrifice their lives for their students, but for a teacher to use their students as a human shield during zombie attacks. Despicable. Shito also brainwashes his students into killing each other and having orgies so that they can produce babies to repopulate an Earth ruled by him. And you thought your high school teacher was bad. 13. Gaku Yushiro from Erased. Gaku Yushiro of Erased is probably one of the worst teachers in anime history. No, he didn't assign too much homework or give the protagonist a failing grade that he didn't quite deserve. What he did was much worse. He systematically kidnapped and murdered his students. This is one teacher you don't want to leave your kids with.